Welcome everybody, excited to have you here for part of our Canvas PD series, and I believe a lot of you who are here live in our session already have participated in quite a few of our sessions. So I'm going to be brief with our explanation this time for you. We are Chris, Carrie, and Nicole. We're part of the digital curriculum team, and we are pleased to have a special guest today. Rick Bush is going to be talking to us and sharing knowledge as well. And the structure of how our session is going to work is we're going to talk about a specific topic, and today we're talking about rubrics and outcomes. After that, we'd be happy to answer questions first about only rubrics and outcomes, because we are recording this session for people to watch at a later point in time. And then if you have any other questions, we're happy to open it up at the end just for an open Q&A about anything Canvas related. So on slide 6, we have our table of contents for all of the different sessions that we are offering. And this is actually level 2, episode 5. So it's right here in the center, and it is all the way down to slide 28. So if you want to go ahead and navigate all the way to slide 28, that will be our working agenda for today. We're going to talk how you even go about creating a rubric. There are just some resources here for you to have. We're going to jump into how to create outcomes, giving examples, scoring, comments, you name it. And then we are, again, happy to answer any questions if there's something that we do not get to that is one of your questions. So we're going to jump in, and I'm going to start with the basics of just how on earth you might go about creating a rubric. So I'm going to hop into this course right here. And if Nicole or Chris, you don't mind sharing the link to this course. This is a course that we are starting to build, and it is a course that we're calling BSD Canvas Exemplars. And as we look at things, you always find great nuggets like, oh, I love that discussion. I love how they did that. What we're trying to do with this is to compile them into one place. So you want to go and see how people are doing great discussions and grab some templates and exactly how to do that. This is a course, and again, we literally just started it this week. So that is our hope for this, that you can get some great ideas from here. So pretending this is actually my class and I want to go about building a rubric, you have options for how you can go ahead and do that. You can go into an assignment and create an assignment task specific rubric, but I'm going to create just a big old rubric for perhaps a writing unit or whatever it is you're wanting to do. Over on the left, one of your buttons for navigation you have is rubrics. So I'm going to hop right into there, and it will show me any rubrics that are already created in this course. So there was a discussion when we did a series on discussions where our last week's topic. You can watch that video if you're interested in that slide deck. So that rubric is already created in there. And anytime you import something, if it has a rubric attached, the rubric will come with it and be inserted into your course. So just to open it up to see what a rubric even looks like, the OCD part of me struggles with the fact that the lines don't line up, and I've worked very, very hard to see if I can get the lines to line up, and they just don't. So it's like, just release that, just give that to the OCD gods, and just know that that's just not how it works. So move on. All right, so, and you also can't color code, but it's okay. I'm getting over it. So here's how a discussion rubric looks, right? You can determine the criteria along the left, and then you can designate, just like you normally would for any sort of a rubric proficiency, what are your different criteria for each of the different levels. So that's essentially what one looks like. And this one is, it has points that accumulate. And we're going to talk lots about all of the different options that you have when you're setting up your rubric. You have a number of different settings. You could have points be specific or not. So over on the right, it's as simple as add a rubric. And it's going to go down here and ask me what I want to call my rubric. And I'm just going to call it sample rubric, just to kind of give us a starting point. It's on the very far left. I always envision it like a table. What is the description or the criterion on the far, far left? So what I tend to do is I grab a rubric, right, that I have in another format, and I literally copy over the stuff, right? So this is a speaking. And I would literally copy, or you can type it up if you're feeling like typing. lots of times I'll like move over a Lucy Calkins rubric, and I will just copy and paste her sections right over here. So I'm updating, that's the criterion for this entire range. They start off giving me the fact that I have 5 points to 0, but you also have the ability to add in the center there to add more columns. So I start with the highest one, and this one was obviously done on a different scale, but you get the idea. Copy that little dude over. I'm going to come over here, and that is my highest. The little pencil means that that is my opportunity to edit anything in there. And you can give it a description for what it is. You can determine how many points you want it worth, and you can give it a title, right? And depending on hard to talk and type at the spell at the same time. So you can determine what you want the title to be, right? Totally up to you. Now you also have, I'll just grab our second one, and I'm just literally copying and pasting from an existing rubric, or I could be typing it right in there. This little plus sign in the middle allows me to add a section to the center. So this is worth a 3, and this is going to be called proficient. Boom. And I'll paste that guy in there. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, you get the idea. And I could keep going. I could add a section for a 2. If I don't want a section for 0 points, I could make that a 1, right? And I could make that be my bottom score. Right now, my rubric is set up for points. So right now it is tabulating points. And again, you have the ability to edit that. So I go ahead and say that I want to create that rubric. Boom, boom, boom. There's my lovely little rubric, and I can always go up here and edit it. So the difference is that I'm creating the rubric in here. So I'm creating however many categories I want. Right now, this beautiful little rubric isn't actually connected to any sort of assignment, right? So this is just where I build it. And again, I build it because I want this rubric to be accessible for a number of different assignments. Or maybe it's just the big generic Lucy Calkins writing rubric for narrative writing. So I'm going to use that for the entire unit or entire module. I want to make sure and have that rubric in its entirety in here so that I can manipulate it. I can change all of the different settings if I want to when I go to assigning it.
And what I want to just take just a brief moment to explain the difference between the two, because sometimes what makes this complex is the terminology used by Canvas, Beaverton, by teachers. And so what I wanted to simply say is, when you just like Carrie had showed, a rubric is just a rubric. Like I don't really need to explain that anymore. You all know how to build one, or you at least know how to access them. And Rick's going to show you a little bit more about the rubrics today. But when it comes to outcomes, on the left-hand side in Canvas, you'll actually have, again, on the left-hand side of the navigation, you'll have a button that says outcomes. Well, Canvas calls them outcomes. We in Beaverton can call them targets. Nicole and I are from other districts where we just would call them standards. So that's really what they are.
Just to kind of show you first, like how it looks in the end, like when you build it as an assignment, and a couple of like tips and tricks that I really like to do. Then I'll show you how it looks in Speedgrader, and then I'll show you how to either add a rubric to an assignment or an outcome, and do it like that. So first off, what you guys are looking at, this is actually in a shell course that the technology teachers are all, the middle school technology teachers are all working from right now. And this is kind of where we all dump all of our good thinking in. So that's really cool. So it's what this comes from is an assignment template that I have. We always kind of start out with what's the outcome, what's the essential question, which I forgot to finish right there. And what are the directions for turning in the work? Most of the learning actually happens in a module. So just to kind of give you context right there. But what I'm asking them to do right here is just turn in a screenshot of their progress on kind of a longer term project. And then they're going to copy and paste a comment right here into the comment box about just a quick reflection of what they did. And then what I've got kind of right here, and this is kind of a routine that they always know, I have a rubric at the bottom telling them how or what they need to do to be able to get full points. And this is more of like a task specific rubric. It's coming from the technology standards that we all built a couple of years ago, that we all kind of sat down and hashed out. But what I've done is kind of scaffolded what the rubrics say in the larger standards. and told them what they actually need to do to be able to get full points on the assignment. So they all know that this is right here at the bottom of every assignment. And then at the bottom, what I've done is attached the outcomes that I have from my course down here. And notice that these are actually the supporting targets that are the supporting targets that we all kind of came together and wrote as technology teachers. So this actually makes it really easy to do a couple of things. One, so I'm going to transition over to Speedgrader. So this is just the sample Speedgrader. What that does, it actually gives the assignment or the rubric in Speedgrader. So if this was actually like an assignment that somebody had turned in, you know, I can give feedback by like writing kind of all over this assignment. You know, I can give feedback in a comment right here, but then I can also score on the rubric and then save that. And then what it does is that rosters in the gradebook in Canvas for the student, which is really cool. So what that does, so if I actually open this up right here, this is just the grades course right here, right? And that this assignment is right here. If the student actually, if I was showing this, the student can actually go in and actually see their score on that rubric, which is actually really cool. In fact, actually, let me do that real quick and show you what that looks like from the student perspective. Let me just go and find that real quick. So then the student, it'll look right here. Let me actually find that. It's like I said, we're all dumping in this course. So this is right here. What it does is it shows that like I've written a comment on there, or the student has, but then there's also this button right here which shows that they can see their score on that rubric, and then they can kind of cross. Like I teach them to put the two assignments together side by side on the screen, and then they can go back and forth and see what they need to do to then go and fix their work and get a better score, which is I think really cool.
So Rick, can I just ask you one question before you
Sure.
go on? I noticed that in the original, can you go back to the original assignment? I noticed in the original assignment you have, right above in the red, green, I noticed you have like a lot of detail. That's the criteria.
Yeah.
But then I noticed in the rubric, you only have the highly proficient and the proficient, just the terminology of what that the rating is. What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, totally. So this you can actually put like kind of like Carrie showed you put all of that stuff in there, and that is kind of like handy when you're looking at it in Speedgrader, but it also makes it kind of like it makes it really big. So if you look at Speedgrader right here, it's nice and small. When I go to grade it, it's nice and small. And actually, to be honest, when I'm usually grading this, it's usually about this big. So so it makes it super simple to just be able to click through, and then I can also see their comment. And one thing I want to add while I'm here at Speedgrader, if you guys know all when you're like on your phone and you type in OMW, right, and it autocorrects to on my way, right? You can actually make those for yourself in your on your laptop. So it'll actually like make like autocorrect, and I've got a whole bunch of them. I use exclamation point at the front, like exclamation point R is that it autofills this, please check the rubric at the bottom of the assignment, for ways that you can improve your work. And then I've got a little YouTube video that just links to like how they actually go and actually see that. Like, I mean, I've taught it a whole bunch of times, but it's nice to be able to just like, how did they do that? Like, they can just pop in that video and throw that in there. So that's really cool. But anyway, so let me show you how to actually add those outcomes and then how to put them into an assignment. So first, it's still in student view there, how to add lots of rubrics. And like she says, there are a ton of different ways to make those rubrics, and there's no necessarily like right way to do it. In the outcomes, which are right here, what you can do is just add the outcome right here. So you just click on plus outcome, and you can create the outcome just like what Carrie was showing you. If you have your standards on one side, what I've got them right here is right here. Yeah, so if you have all of your standards in a spreadsheet, you can just go ahead and just grab kind of like the title right here. And then let me try to find where that was. There you go. And just, put them in just like that. Just the short title right here. And
Rick,
then one thing I've done in the past, it kind of depends upon, the level of what you actually want to get it to. But you can, if this was actually in a spreadsheet that was vertical, not horizontal, you could copy that, the highly proficient. If I actually did it kind of like this, it won't look the way that I want it to, but you'll kind of get the idea that you can copy and then paste, and it'll put that in there right there. So, which is kind of nice, right? And then you can then save that and then, adjust the points. Kind of like it's pretty much like Carrie was showing you in the rubric. And then you save that. And then when you're in an assignment,
of course, Rick and I were talking earlier, some of the teachers can go to, the targets exist in the web page, on the website, and some of the targets exist in Teacher Source. So Rick just made it convenient to just put them in a spreadsheet because him and his team have been working together. So rather than all of them going out and going to the website, they just kind of collated those together in that spreadsheet.
Yeah. So one thing that I do want to show you, so what I've done, or what I always do, is I have this template right here. So it's just got kind of that, basic template, but what it also has down here is the rubric, that I'm going to put in. So what I like to do is I just go to edit, and then I grab the HTML. I don't look at it. I don't really read it. I just know it's there, and it's the way that I want it. And then I go back to that assignment, and then paste that HTML right there. And then I can go in and, put in, right here, do this, right? This is the standard, oops, right here. And then, do this, do this, do this. And then I'm just going to make this a 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go in and add the rubric. And by the way, if you've actually created a rubric like Carrie was showing you, you can do that as well. Right here, you can find that rubric. So these are all of the rubrics that are in the Master Tech course right here. So you've got them all. It looks like you can actually any Canvas that you've got open. So you can either add the rubric right there, or you can go ahead and delete the rubric that's in there, and then go ahead and find your outcome. So this is the outcome that I just created right there, and it's got 5 points right here. Usually I create them as 4. I didn't actually go in and edit that. And then what I like to do, you have to click use this rubric for assignment grading. Some people, and Chris and I can kind of talk about this, but some people like to remove the points from the rubric. I like to keep them in there. But then you just go ahead and create rubric. Sometimes if you forget to actually update the number of the points, you'll actually get a little error message there. And then you've got that rubric, and then it'll show up in Speedgrader, which is really cool.
So Rick, I just want to talk about one thing real quick, actually, one thing, and then we'll go on. So what Rick was showing with the HTML, he feels really comfortable with that. And so, I mean, that's what Rick does. He loves doing it. But what he was really showing you, in essence, would be you could create one assignment, a template assignment with those boxes that Rick had built, and you could duplicate the assignment. So if you didn't want to HTML it, if you didn't want to go ahead and change that code, you could duplicate your assignment. And the purpose is, just at the beginning, what Rick had showed you, he wants his students to be fully aware of the language being used and how they're being assessed. And so that's the reason why he embeds this in the rich content editor. He wants transparency, his students to know why and how they're being scored. Then adding a rubric allows that flexibility for him in Speedgrader. That's when what he showed you earlier about being able to click and give a student a certain 1, 2, 3, or 4 score because the rubric has been added. The last thing I want to mention is, and this is where we get this complexity between rubrics and outcomes and stuff. An outcome, again, is your target. When, like Rick showed you, if he has all of his targets in his course, he can choose 1 or 2 targets and they make a rubric that's attached to the assignment. And that's where that magic becomes. And so that's where you see right now on that page.
Oops. And I could find that right there. Yeah, right there. Yeah, and we can get into like some kind of like how I organize my outcomes or my standards. We don't have to. One of the other things that I do in the year, like when we're actually in person, I actually like to leave this blank and then co-create that rubric with the students about what I'm going to be looking for. So that's always kind of good for getting buy-in and things like that. So, and I know Sandy will kind of like, oh yeah, that's EL, right? Yeah.
Can you, Rick,
So,
can you do me a favor and can you click on the pencil for that rubric for me real quick?
sure, you bet.
So one of the things that Rick had mentioned was you'll see where it says, remove points from this rubric or don't post. You have some rules that you could choose. And one of the big differences between removing the points and leaving them is if you have more than one outcome, right? An outcome is typically worth 4 points. Canvas will add those two rubrics, those two outcomes as 8 points. And so Rick's example, his students will see they've got a total of 6 or 5 out of 8. Some teachers are like, you know what, I'm going to assess you on the individual outcome and I will give you an overall point value that reflects that. So that's the reason why a teacher might take away the point value from the rubric so that they say, yeah, you scored a 2 on the first outcome and a 3 in the second one. I'm going to give you with confidence a 3 as an overall score out of 4 for this assignment. So that's why you might hear or see my good friend Rebecca Larson, that's what she does. And what's one of the reasons why is because you either have to go with explaining why there's an 8-point value or perhaps a 12-point value, or you just go the other route, which is simply I've removed the total and I want you focusing on the target. In any case, Rick's or Rebecca's, they both have the same motivation. Focus on the target, focus on the feedback. And Rick, if you could just speak to the power of this, the efficiency and how that gives your feedback for your students.
Totally. Yeah. So one of the things that I'll switch over to here, and you're going to see, like I showed you this briefly, grades. When it comes time to actually like look at grades, you can actually switch this over from gradebook to learning mastery, which is really cool. And then it shows how each of the students has done on each standard, which is really nice. So when it's time for me to actually go over and take a look and put things into student view, parent view, synergy, this is where I take that information from and then put it right into synergy, which is really nice. So this is what I'm looking at, kind of like a snapshot in time of how my students did. And then, yeah, you can actually also reorganize these. It also always shows them like really unorganized, but yeah. So you could do that. That's really nice. The students actually also have this view. So if they go over to, let me go back to the student view. Students can actually go over and take a look at how they're doing in grades right here. And they can switch over to learning mastery as well. And then they can see which of the targets in the course they've actually mastered, which is really cool, right? So that's kind of cool. So if you can then kind of start looking at like how are the students doing in the on the standards, and they can start looking at that and then figuring out which sorry, this one is kind of crazy because we've got so many assignments in here, but oops, darn it, I'm trying to click on that and it's going away every time I do it. This right here, so you can see which assignments are associated with which learning target, which is really nice as well. But yeah, just being able to like focus in on those learning targets then instead of, and like what content the students are supposed to be learning is kind of nice. So and then also giving that feedback on how the students need to improve is so much faster.
And just to clarify, you'll see if you haven't noticed in the top right hand corner, it says a total of 106%. In Beaverton, any synergy generate course, we've created a flag so we hide the percentage of the total from the students. So Rick could see it, and it's still helpful for teachers to see that, but a student would only see the scores on his individual assignments and not a total percentage. A teacher could turn that off, just as an FYI, and we advocate they don't unless there's a true reason why. Rick, this has been pretty awesome, and I don't know, like, cool. If you want to share one last thing, Rick, or if you want to open it up for Q&A.
Trying to remember. Yeah, I'm ready to take questions. I think that's kind of it. Yeah. Kind of covered all of the bases that we were looking for.
Carrie and Nicole, do you guys want Rick to cover anything else, or?
I just was wondering, if you create outcomes, can those be shared like with teammates? Do you have to create in a master course? Could you pull those into your course? How that part works?
Good
So
question.
yeah, you can totally share. You can import just content. Just the outcomes. You can import just the rubric. I really like to, like, my workflow, it really helps me to be able to work from this shell course. So I've got 3 different classes that get this kind of the very similar content. So what I do is I build in the shell course and then send it to the main courses, the actual live courses that we're working with. So it's kind of helpful to be able to do it that way.
So just create one solid set of outcomes at the beginning and rubrics for each individual assignment is the gist of what I'm getting at?
Well, actually, a couple of routes, but one would be like if you're on a team, Pat, and I forget what you teach. You told me before. What is it?
Social studies.
Social studies. And what grade level?
High school.
So let's say perhaps like for 9th grade social studies, you and your teammates said, hey, listen, let's create a course called 9th grade outcomes for social studies. That's the course, and you are the teachers. You create the outcomes just like Rick was showing you. Actually go ahead, copy and paste and build that in there. And then, but basically the sweetness of that is then you could go ahead and import or copy those individual outcomes to your course. Remember that an outcome is what's actually needed to build a rubric for the assignment so you could score on that target. So, and that's where the confusion part, like Carrie was showing you, like, I think it was Carrie, the Lucy Coughlin's rubrics, like there are very task specific, curriculum driven rubrics, which you would build a rubric, but they don't really need outcomes. But if you want to score against a target has to be put in there first. An outcome has to be put in Canvas, and then that's what builds the rubric for you to assess.
Okay, I got it.
That's where
One
I feel
thing
like
that I will say
it gets a
is
bit
that,
complex. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing that I wanted to show you that, oops, I'm still in student view. One thing that I wanted to show you real quick, if I click on rubrics, one of the reasons why there's so many rubrics right here in this course is that every time you create an assignment and then link outcomes, it creates a new rubric. And that's why it always calls it like some rubric, right? So that's why there's just a whole bunch of duplicate ones here, right? It's kind of messy.
Okay.
But you can actually, one of the things that I've actually started doing is naming the rubric. So then when I go to that, so for instance, right here is like our, Canvas scavenger hunt. It shows it right here. When you're here and then you create that rubric, you can just name it right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's very possible that you could create a rubric using target 1, target 2, and then use the same rubric on more than one assignment using the exact same targets. And then, like Rick said, you would just simply reuse that rubric each time. It's just that sometimes when we create an assignment, I might score it on these 2 targets, and the next time the same assignment could be scored on these other targets. And so now I've created a new rubric effectively.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So questions and answers, Rick. He's going to hang out with us because he's missing a really important meeting, but he's going to hang out with us today. So any questions, I'd say fire away about rubrics and outcomes. And then I think we're going to have a time where we shut it down and we say all questions are okay.
Put that in there, because when it shows up in Speedgrader, and that's really kind of like what we're looking for, you can have that rubric right here. And that's the fun part, right?
Yeah, thank you. That's really great. I've seen that plus rubric now that you showed
Rick, can I edit the assignment and add the rubric after kids have already started submitting the assignment? Okay, good. Another question about when I'm trying to create a rubric right here. Is there any way to add like bold or highlight it into the words in that? I'm saying even
I don't think so.
I copy it over too with like a space in between. It just butts it right up to each other, so it won't even.
No, and that's one of the reasons why when Rick was showing you why he doesn't copy and paste all the language, because in the rubric it gets kind of like, well, it's unattractive, to be quite honest. So that's one of the reasons why I feel like I love that Rick embeds that in the rich content editor here. Then you can make bold and do all those.
This, right? When they go to submit, that rubric is right there, right over where they are going to submit. So then this is one last chance to make sure you got everything that you need. And then, submit your work right there.
the copying, pasting of getting this stuff into Canvas is definitely, I mean, Brooke and I have both done it. Nicole's done it. I think Kimmy have done too. Like, it's a copy and paste party. Like, there's no other way around it. But the beauty is once it's in there, or once it's in a spreadsheet, like Rick and I, we've been working on, or some other teachers have been doing it, then it's even more potential that we can import it. It's kind of like a bang, it's all done. But no matter what, copy pasting is definitely a preliminary step. But once it's in there, you can import the rubric over again and reuse it. It'll duplicate it. Matter of fact, if you duplicate the assignment, it will duplicate the rubric.
All of the modules right here, right? So like all I have to do is I've got everything that I want in this module, including assignments that have the outcomes attached already. I just send that to my live course, and then I can, everything comes with it, including the outcomes. And actually, like, I don't actually put the outcomes in my live course because I know that the assignment will bring them with. So
I have a question about that. We have a course that we dump everything into as well. Mm-hmm. So say that we use Canvas again next year, will that course still be available with all our rubrics that we've created that we'll dump into next year's class? Okay.
Absolutely.
Those want to go. Okay.
That's the idea.
Right.
That's the beauty of this. That's the true beauty of what this is about.
My class right now will be gone, right? Like my this year's class.
Well,
that would be
your class will be what it'll turn to, like what's called an archive. So it means that you can see it at any point in time. Matter of fact, your students can find it, but you can't edit or delete or modify the course, but you can import from that into anywhere else.
Oh, good.
Yeah, like this makes my grading workflow so much easier. Yeah.
And I just have to thank you guys. First of all, I'm a 5th grade teacher, and coming into this originally going to do Canvas, super panicky. I think I had multiple meetings with you, Chris, but oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And I think I'll be using it next year as paperless classroom. And it is fantastic for grading and all the reasons you guys are using it and teaching us. And I am so thrilled we decided to do it at elementary. So
I love that you saw right through the plan.
Oh my goodness.
I love it. It's the master plan, right? Is to make, well, and not everything's easier, but to make things easier, in my opinion, Canvas is a very effective grade book of evidence of learning. I feel like that's what it brings. So yes, we can disagree with the philosophy of standards-based grading and all that, but it still can effectively show evidence. And then just to speak to this, in 3 years, you could go back and look at that course and go, what were those students doing? What was the assignment I created for them? Oh, I'm going to import that in and have an exemplar from that course.